Hi, everyone, and welcome to the BoldChess show. I'm your host, Roland, and with me, the international master, Luis Medarde. In this video, we will discuss the Italian game. It's a very popular opening, and this guide will be concise and perfect for beginners. We will cover everything you need to play the Italian game in a professional fashion. The Italian game is a family of chess openings beginning with the moves e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, then followed by bishop to c4. It's an opening defined by the development of the white bishop to c4, it's also called the Italian bishop, where it attacks black's vulnerable f7 square. Some historical background on this opening, it's basically the oldest recording chess openings in history. It is believed to be developed by players such as Damiano and Polerio in the 16th century, and later by Greco in the 1620, who gave the game its main line. It has been extensively analyzed for more than 300 years. The Encyclopedia of Chess Openings gives the Italian game 10 codes from C50 to C54 for the Giuoco Piano, and C55 to C59 for the two knights defense. Some sidelines are also featured under C50. So for people who are interested to check this opening from the encyclopedia, or they would like to note these numbers, here you have a very quick overview on them in this slide. So we will cover here the basic theory, what you need to play, the most important and popular lines in this opening prepared by our international master Luis. And then Luis will help us in answering the most important question, if it's suitable for beginners or not, and what would be his final notes on this. Thank you so much, Luis, for being here with us on the call. Welcome on board.
Thank you. My pleasure as usual. I'm very happy to be here.
Amazing. It's good to have you on this year, and we have such an interesting topic in hand as well. Special thanks for preparing all the notes and for preparing these lines for us. We will cover everything shortly, but before, we would like to remind the viewers that we have a whole academy dedicated to chess that teaches you everything you need, from openings to endgames, tactics, positional motives, and much more. We have also complete plans and checklists prepared by our master Luis, with a clear path on how you can achieve 2000s rating in chess and even beyond. You can learn more at BoldChess.com. Are you ready, Luis, to guide us through the Italian game?
Sure, I'm looking forward.
Amazing. Let's get started.
Okay, so probably the first question when talking about an opening is, okay, what is the Italian opening? The Italian opening arises after e4, e5, knight f3. Well, white attacks the pawn on e5, black defense, and bishop c4. This is one of the most common and logical ways to play. And as Roland explained earlier, bishop c4 keeps an eye on f7, what is the weakest point in black's position, and sometimes, well, actually we'll see a few lines where white tried to use this fact to attack f7, either with the knight, at some point, maybe with the queen. Well, we'll see it a bit later, but this is the Italian opening. We're gonna see a few lines. For example, the Greco's attack is when black plays bishop c5, what is one of the two main moves. Here the best and main move for black are either knight f6 or bishop c5. Both have his pros and cons. If bishop c5, white plays c3 here. The idea is to play d4 at some point, gain the center, gain a tempo against the bishop, and develop an initiative. Black develops the knight, attacking the pawn e4, and black could defend it with d3. We might take a look at this later, but yeah, this is more solid. But d4 is the most aggressive move. It takes c4. Here e5 is possible, but the old move is, so it takes d4. We gain a tempo against the bishop. Bishop has to move. If the bishop retreats to a normal square, white keeps pushing the pawns attacking the knights, gaining some tempi. So the best move for black is to keep this check. And in this position, there is bishop d2, knight b2. All the moves are interesting here. Even king f1 I have seen recently in some games, but knight c3 was the Greco's favorite move. The point is that after knight takes c4, white plays short castle, giving away some material because black can take on c3. But taking on c3 is very dangerous. What piece would you take with Roland? What do you think is more natural? Take white knight on c3.
I think the bishop is more natural because the knight is blocking the path of the rook. If the rook moves from f1 to e1 later on, it can check the king. So I think getting it with the bishop first and keeping the knight in place might be an option. But again, as you have pointed out, this is very risky.
It's clear you have done your homework. I mean, if black takes with the knight, he's in trouble. Actually, in future videos, we might see some model games, and this is a very nice trap to know. If black takes with the bishop, theoretically speaking, he's doing fine, but he will have to know still some theory. But yeah, this is the Greco-Cross attack. Black has to be quite careful here. We also have
one moment, Luis. Can you please feature the line real quick when the bishop captures the knight at c3?
Sure.
Is now white, he has to capture back directly?
There are two moves, but the best move is d5.
Is d5,
actually,
right.
here.
Right.
The point is that white is a pawn down, so he needs to, well, right now it's a knight and a pawn down, but okay, he can gain back the piece, but like he will remain being a pawn down. So he has to develop his initiative as fast as possible, and b takes c3 allows black to play d5, consolidate the knight, gain a tempo against the bishop, and castle, where black is doing fine.
Which is totally fine.
By the way, know that knight takes c3 would be a big mistake because of queen e1 check, losing the knight.
And then we got back the piece.
Yes, actually, we would be a piece up third, because right now white already got back the piece, but after knight takes c3, queen e1 check, if black, let's say, blocks, for example, white takes on c3, and now white has an extra piece, and he even keeps some initiative here.
Absolutely.
So black has to be very careful.
Very accurate.
The way to go is, yes.
Amazing.
After bishop takes c3, b takes c3, black should go d5, trying to solidify his position. And black might be a bit better, but this is still complicated. But the best move for white is to go for d5 here, create a lot of complications. And well, this is crazy, honestly. We might see it later in more detail. But yes, like black can escape with the bishop, but then we pin his knight, and well, there is some line later where we can analyze this deeper. But this is very difficult for both, and the player who knows his stuff better usually is gonna get a very good position in the first 10-15 moves of the game, and you might even win just by remembering some moves.
Just because
this is very dangerous
the players who remember more theory here might be able to get the upper hand in getting a very good position. Very good, Luis. Thank you for pointing this line out.
So here we have, bishop c5. This is the same line as we were talking about. And as we said, after this move, c3, knight f6, d4, takes bishop 4 check. This is the position we were talking about. And here we can see that after short castle, bishop takes c3, the best move for black. We were talking about d5. And now the best move is to retreat the bishop. The obvious move for white would be to take on c6, but white keeps playing very accurately, and he pings this knight. The idea is that if you allow me to do it, I'll take first this knight and later the other one. So I take both knights and I'll be up a piece. But here black saves the knight on c6, going to e7 and blocking the e file to try to have his king as safe as possible. White gains back the piece. So right now black is up a pawn. He usually goes d6, trying to develop. And in this position, there are different moves. The old move is bishop g5. And, well, some crazy complications there. But h4 is also interesting, trying to push on the king side to be ready when black castles later. And for example, after c5, white can go g4. And in case black castles after d5, the bishop is trapped. White has a very powerful initiative, and black is actually not doing so well here, probably. So this is just an example, but basically what we have to keep in mind is that in these kind of positions, after we give up some material, we have to play very aggressive. So we don't have time, like we don't give time for black to consolidate his position.
Absolutely.
This is the
and
smaller attack.
here in this position for white, it's totally fine for him to push the pawns in front of the king. We always teach beginners, do not just push the pawns in front of the king without any reason. But here I think the reason is justified because white is gaining space and is controlling the center very well, and probably black does not have any quick way to exploit the space next to the king. Is that true, Luis, or?
Yes, it's completely right. White has better development, so it's not easy for black, for example, to bring his queen against the white's king. Also, when you are up and down, you have to take risks. And okay, like imagine one day black is able to attack white's king, okay, but anyway, white was up and down, so he has to do something. He has to not allow black to consolidate. And in this case, white has better control over the king side, so he can allow himself to push his kingside pawns.
Right, right. And here probably one of the moves would be bishop to e5, maybe?
Yeah, I think bishop e5
Bishop to
is
e5,
the
maybe
best.
this can be
Yes,
a candidate move. And white should take here, or should he postpone the capture?
I think I would take on
Maybe we will
e5.
take.
I
And
would
then
like
we
to
open the
get
file.
back the pawn. Yes, later, let's say black takes back, for example, we can push the d pawn. We might take the pawn back on e5. So it's still a super complicated position, but at least white manages to get back the pawn. And also, like, he can even keep pushing here if he wants. I think in this position it's also a bit about what you like more, like if getting back the material or keep attacking. But this position is still very interesting and very playable for both.
Very nice. Extremely interesting indeed, as you pointed out.
We are gonna see now a line that is well, calmer. We see more in the elite nowadays, that is after bishop c5. There are different move orders here, but they lead to basically the same position. In this case, white develops in a calmer way, just goes d3. Black develops, white plays c3, d6, castle, castle. So this is more like a long maneuver game. White is doing fine here. One typical plan is to play a3 at some point, later knight d2. White brings pieces to the king side, but later he might have an attack, but it's slower, like knight d2, knight f1, knight d3. Maybe later we move this knight to bring the queen. One day we think about knight f5, but it's not that quick. It's not like we are going all in since the first move. White can also play in the center, is slower, but still very, very interesting. Many great players have played like this. For example, Magnus Carlsen is the most famous one, but also I know like Caruana, Hikaru Nakamura, all the great players, all the top players nowadays are playing like this. Slower maneuvers, and they understand positional better. So yeah, White is doing well here.
Very well.
We also have the Greco variation. Well, this is what we were talking about earlier. After white takes here, black gives the check, knight c3, black grabs the pawn thanks to the pin, and white castles. Knight takes c3, Earlier, I was talking about b takes c3, what is the most common move, but okay, rook e1 check is also possible. After this, black might retreat. We take the knight, black consolidates, and to be fair, I think this position is fine for black because he's gonna be able to castle. Although white has a bit of compensation, at the end of the day, black is up a pawn. So he's doing fine. I mean, he's doing okay. So my recommendation, if you go here, as I said earlier, is to, after knight takes c3, take on c3. And we might see this later, but bishop takes c3 is not really dangerous for white. Queen b3 is even a move here. Bishop a3 is a move. There are a lot of crazy lines, but this is an example of black being able to consolidate and something ideally we might like to avoid.
Right.
This one is also quite classical after bishop c5, c3. Knight f6 is, in my opinion, the best move. If not, maybe d6, but a move that a lot of people play is d4, sorry, queen 7, and we can meet this by playing d4. Black retreats the bishop. Know that ed4 can be made by short castle. The point being that after queen takes e4, okay, our viewers might stop the video if they want to find the solution, but white has a very good move here. I know you have seen it already.
Tactical puzzle, yeah. It's very popular
Yes.
one. Yes, this is popular one. Absolutely. This is the a famous spin between the queen and the king. And it's pretty much game over at this point.
So instead of allowing white to attack on the e file, usually after d4, black just retreats. And white can try to push on the queen side, trying to trap the bishop at some point, but if black plays correctly, he makes room for the bishop. And the position might be between equal and slightly better for white, but a playable position to play for both. A lot of maneuver in the near future.
It seems here that the black knight is a bit misplaced at d8, although it, like white is not easy for white to exploit the position, but he managed to get lots of space, I believe, out of the opening. Like he managed to maybe
Yeah.
I feel like white is easier to play as white than to play as black here. Black is a bit pushed down, is not able to move freely that much.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, for a very experienced player, this might be, I mean, kind of okay, but I mean, this knight has no square right now because the pawn is controlling it. Black has no clear plan. However, white can keep developing the pieces. At some point, even continue pulsing on the queen side. I think it's easier for white to play. Objectively speaking, as the center is closed, it's not like black is already lost. I mean, he can still try to fight back, but position is quite difficult for black. This knight, as you pointed out, is not doing great.
It's very difficult. He might try maybe the pawn to c6 at some point and try to free the knight in certain variations.
Yeah, that is probably the best try. I was thinking about playing bishop d3 as white to defend the pawn on e4. So after c6, white wants to go c4.
Right.
And keep always a pawn on d5 to make sure he controls this knight. And I would say white keeps some advantage, but still, I mean,
lots of
we know
work is required.
winning is very difficult against a good defense. So yeah, game is gonna go on, but yeah, white's position would be very good here. He develops knight c3, what develops the bishop, and yeah, white is at least much easier to play, I would say.
And rook to e1 also can be an option.
Sure.
So very nice game.
This one is going after bishop c4, again bishop c5. d3 is played at f6, and white chooses to develop the knight to c3. This is an interesting idea, especially for beginners. We are going to see here a line where black handles this very well. But this can be tricky. Many times the idea with knight c3 is that white wants to either go bishop g5, knight d5, and put pressure against this knight, or at some point grab the bishop pair with some knight a4, later trying to take the bishop. But this could even backfire sometimes. So, well, not grabbing the bishop pair, but black can try to do something similar, and if white does not play correctly, this bishop can end up being a bit misplaced. There is a very famous game by Capablanca where he wins very nicely with the black pieces. Here after d6, white goes bishop g5, and if black were to castle, he would be in trouble because after knight d5, white will be able to double these pawns on the f file for black, and later this king will be weak. But
Right.
if black reacts correctly, kicks the bishop as fast as possible, and white retreats the bishop, d5, bishop e3. Now this bishop has no very clear plan, because e5 is very solid. So this is very double-edged. If black doesn't react correctly, he might end up being in trouble very soon. But in this position, funnily enough, it's now black who pings white's knight and who is trying to play knight d4. And white can push h3, but after h3, bishop h5, he doesn't have d4. So this ping is more annoying for white than the ping white had set up earlier. A possible line is bishop b5 for white. The point is that white wants to avoid knight d4. So if white pings this knight, black cannot go knight d4, but after all, after something like a6, takes, black would be doing okay here. Because he has the bishop pair, he has a center, well, he has a center, like he has good control over the d5 square. So this is a possible line. It's not like white is doing terrible or anything, but black is doing completely fine here.
It seems the
So yes,
position
this is a
is
possible
equal.
line. Yeah, I mean, I think I like black a bit more if I had to choose because of the bishop pair. But objectively speaking, I would say it will be like 0.0, maybe minus 0.1. I know, like very close to equal. But this is an example of black handling well the pressure against the f6 knight a bit earlier, I would say. So yeah, like okay, still as usual, very complicated position, a lot of work to do with both sides to win, but at least black managed to survive here somehow, because if he's not careful, he might end up in trouble quite fast.
Absolutely. We would like to remind the viewers that the objective of this video is to show you how white and black can play in the best possible fashion. We are not featuring much of traps here in this video because we will dedicate another video for some games and featuring some traps. We're just interested here to feature how both sides, whether you are playing as black and you are meeting the Italian game, how you can respond in a very sensible way, or if you are leading the game as white, what kind of ideas do you have in these specific lines and variations. So this is why you find us featuring only the best possible moves or one of the best possible moves in every line, so you can get a very good idea on how to play this opening before you move on and study traps or some famous masters games. It's very good for people to get an idea on how the best moves can be played in any variation before they see the suboptimal moves and the traps and the cheap tricks that every player can pull in any specific line.
So the next is the Evans Gambit. This is very aggressive. Well, this is when after bishop c4, as we were seeing, like, okay, this is the Italian, bishop c5, black suddenly, apparently, like the first time I saw this, I remember I thought, okay, this is like for no reason. What is white doing? White gives up on b4. But it has a point. The point is that black should probably take the pawn, although he can retreat, as we are going to see in the next line. But if he takes the pawn, the normal move is to take with the bishop because, okay, if he takes with the knight, the pawn on e5 would be hanging. So white could take. And besides taking this pawn, he will be attacking the pawn on f7, and later is able to win some tempi against black minor pieces. So the best move for black, if he's gonna take at least, is to take with the bishop. And white's point here is to go c3, gain a very important tempi against the bishop, and continue with d4 at some point. In this position, black should retreat the bishop. Best squares are either a5 or e7. And bishop a5 is the main one. Black thinks, okay, you want to push d4, but I'll go d4. Sorry, like I'll stop you from doing it because the pawn on c3 is pinned. But actually taking on d4 here is very risky for black, so usually he defends the pawn on e5 by playing d6. For example, this is a normal move. But white has to be very accurate here to keep the initiative going, but black will have to be very, very precise too. A possible line is just to castle, and if black develops, okay, we keep pinning black pieces and trying to attack, and after something like this, white has the center, black is up a pawn, so yeah, position is interesting. It might seem like black is blundering a piece in this particular line because white just played bishop b5, and now black allowed white to go d5. But actually, after d5, a6 saves the day for black. So if we take on c6, black can take our knight, sorry, our bishop. And if we retreat the bishop with something like, let's say, bishop a4, we still pin black's knight, but he has b5. So again, he attacks our bishop. And if we move the bishop, he moves the knight. If we take the knight, he takes our bishop. So a possible line would be to retreat the bishop to e2. Game goes on. White has some initiative, but black managed to survive at least and don't fall for any early trap or, I mean, actually black is about to castle, so yeah, he's doing fine, or like, I mean, he will be able to keep playing a game, you know, it's not like he's lost or anything like that.
Absolutely. And here I think the last move from white is to free up the pin of that bishop at g4.
Yeah.
It is delivering the pin. So he escapes from his, he moves his bishop away to safety, and he removes the pin at the same time. So it's a very good strategic move. Instead of trying to be super aggressive and keep the attack going on, he knows when to balance out between an attacking position and keeping the pressure going on. It's a very interesting position and how this would play up. And both sides, I guess, have chances here in this game to do very well.
Yes. Yeah. The next line we're gonna feature is what happens when black doesn't want to take the pawn. What I mean is in the Evans Gambit, after b4, we were talking about black taking the pawn, but okay, as we said, he can also retreat. White could try to take advantage of this bishop on b6, going a4, planning a5, and if black goes a6, the point is again to make room for the bishop.
To escape.
Yes, white keeps developing. This pawn is hanging, but if black takes this pawn, the pawn on e5 would be hanging. So for now, it's not like white needed to defend the pawn, but once black defends the pawn on e5, this pawn is under attack, so white defends that pawn with c3. And something like that, f6, d3, game goes on. This is actually like a normal Italian, where white puts the pawns on the queen side. This position could be reached by the Giuoco Pianissimo too, and is in between equal and tiny better for white. Very playable position for both. A possible line would be something like short castle, h3, bishop e6. Let's say we trade bishops. White grabs some space on the queen side. Black hides the bishop. Game keeps going. Position is around equal, and yeah, very typical on the Italian. Later, white will finish his development and try to use his space advantage on the queen side, but black is doing okay here. He has no problems.
The e6 square right now is under attack, and probably black needs to attend to it somehow.
Sure, something like maybe queen e7. Queen d7 can be played. Still, as you said, black has to be careful some knight g5 might be coming, for example, putting more pressure against the e6 pawn. So black will have to be precise to manage to defend the pawn. But I think he should be able to do it with correct play. But obviously he will have to be aware of that threat and keep attention on that weakness.
Absolutely. Lots of work is required from both sides for sure. It's it's still a very interesting tactical position, semi-open, not extremely open, but still it's very I think positional players would really like this position because they can really have a slow plan going on and improve their pieces step by step until they reach a point where they can break through or capitalize on a specific blunder.
In the opposite side, more or less, we have the flag liberal attack. This is not for a slow positional play, as we're gonna see.
Right.
This one after bishop c4. Well, so far we have focusing on bishop c5, what is a fine move, but the other move is knight f6. And after knight f6, white can just defend the pawn on e4 with d3, that usually transposes after bishop c5, or white can go for a very direct attack with knight e5. This is very critical, and black has to be super careful here. It might seem like a trap for beginners or something like that, but this is played at the highest level nowadays. For example, I remember last year, Hikaru beat Fabiano Caruana in a classical game and a very important game for both, just to give some example, but this is played like very, very often at top level. After black plays d5, what is the best move? To not allow white to take on f7, white takes on d5, and here is when a very important moment comes. Knight takes d5 is dubious, but it's the most logical move, so we are going to take a look at it. Knight a5 is the best move, objectively speaking. A lot of theory to study here. Usually whites go bishop a5 check, game goes on, but knight takes d5 is probably the move that a lot of people will face here. And there are different ways to proceed here. d4 is an interesting way for white also, but the most direct and the most classical is knight takes f7, giving out the knight. This might seem crazy, but black has to take with the king. After that, his knight on d5 is pinned, so white can go queen f3 check, attacking both the knight and the king. So the only move to not lose the knight for free is king e6. White keeps attacking with knight c3. Black has to defend the knight. He defends with knight b4. At the same time, black is attacking the c2 pawn,
Right.
threatening a check, attacking the rook. So white castles. Now black should not take on c2, because if he takes, d5 would be hanging. So he tries to defend in the best possible way that knight. And now white is down a piece. He needs to attack. The king is on e6. It's very exposed, but we can expose it even more by playing d4. The point is that if black takes, then the rook joins attack, and black's king is, well, doing badly there. So black should try to hide the king. If possible, trading queens when you're up a piece is a very good strategy. So queen f6 is a possible move for black. White doesn't want to trade queen, so he retreats the queen. At the same time, he pings the pawn on e5. And after king e7, trying to escape, white keeps some initiative. He already has 2 pawns for the missing piece, but at the same time, black is managing to survive, to develop his pieces. So even this position is still not completely clear. White has attack, but black has a material advantage. So as you said in other positions earlier, a lot of work to do and a very difficult and very interesting position to play, actually. What do you think about this position in general? Do you prefer to be the side that sacrifice material and attack, or the side who is defending?
I think black here has to be very precise, especially in the previous moves. Like if we go and check these moves, for example, he needed exactly to play like how he played in this position, or otherwise White will be getting a very good advantage, if not finishing the whole game. But if Black knows the theory very well and he can consolidate like quickly here. Now we saw here Black playing extremely good moves, probably the most precise moves he can play in this specific position, if he chose, as you said, if he chose the idea of taking the pawn. So if a club player doesn't know the exact theory, what happens after taking the pawn, he should be very careful of attempting this line even, because there's lots of traps involved, lots of different tricks, and White is able to keep the pressure going on for a very long time. But then here at this point, it seems that Black is just holding well. He's able to. There is no way to attack the king quickly anymore. There is no knight. There is no pin anymore with this knight, and I mean there is no clear attack yet. But the fact that I feel Black here is doing fine. And if I were to choose at this point, maybe I will take Black. But before f3, from this position onward, I would definitely prefer White, because I would always think that Black might not be able to play in this precise fashion.
Yeah, I agree. Black's play might be more difficult at the beginning, at least. Okay, so now we go with the Maxland attack. This is, well, when after knight f6 on the third move, White doesn't try knight g5. Instead, he goes for d4. It depends how the game continues. It's called, well, Scott's Gambit, Maxland attack. There are different lines. Here, after e takes d4, e5 is also an interesting option, but short castle is a very tricky one, actually. Black can try to defend the pawn on d4 with bishop c5, and then after e5, d5 is the best move. Already, Black has to be accurate and know this. And we take the knight. Black takes our bishop. We can give a check, trying to force Black to lose the right to castle, but Black can go bishop e6, and after we take on g7, with g8, bishop g5. Black has to be careful here. There are a lot of traps, but the best move for Black in this position is bishop e7, and something like takes, knight takes d4. After all, game will be around equal, at least like a playable position for both, where Black's king is still in the center, but he might kind of castling by hand. I mean, it's a weird way to castle, but okay, like rook on g7 might be defending the king, and yeah, position is pretty open. Black managed to survive. In later videos, we might feature some traps that White has in these lines that Black can go wrong about, but this position, again, Black managed to survive. We are here featuring the best moves for both, or at least like decent lines for both. And yeah, both are fine here. White might have some open lines to attack, for example, like knight c3 would be threatening d5 because of this pin, but at the same time, Black's position is good. Black has the bishop, so yeah, position is pretty playable for both, I would say. What do you think about this position?
Yeah, it's very nice. As you pointed out, Luis, lots of traps here. And while I was reviewing this line, it brought back lots of memories from back in the day when I used to play actively in a local chess club. I've seen many players around these lines, not knowing exactly like what is really the best move. Like for example, here d5, it might not be the easiest to find for average club players. They might do they might do something else. And these precise movements here, they like how they need to keep going with everything. Bishop e7, I have seen at the club level as well. Not all players can find bishop to e7. this is not the easiest move to find for average players. Of course, for masters they can find it instantly, but for average club players they might not be able to figure out bishop to e7 pretty quickly. They might think of something else. They might think that they can maybe move the queen, or maybe they can do something like blocking the bishop with the pawn. They might come up with some kind of ideas, forgetting that this pawn is protecting the bishop, for example.
Yes.
They need to be precise pretty much, which is why many beginners, they like to play as white here, feeling that black might not be able to play precisely. But once you know the theory about it, once you understand the lines and how everything is going, then it's not that scary anymore. You can be black, you can just attempt all these moves without having any issues. But I still prefer white here. I feel like it's easier to play overall.
Okay, I agree. But yeah, at least black survived here.
Absolutely, yeah. He's done a very good job here, finding all the best moves.
We also have here the, well, again, like with the flat libre attack, or with the fegatello, where I mentioned it earlier, instead of knight takes d5, black's best move is knight a5 here. There are even some other tricky lines. Even Carlsen, for example, tried this crazy move once. What seems ridiculous at first glance, but the best normal move is knight a5.
Knight a5.
White gives a check. Usually black plays e6, takes, and note that after this sequence of moves is black who is a pawn down, but will be black who has the initiative here. In this position, there are many moves, well, mainly 3 moves for white. He can go bishop d3, he can go bishop b2, even queen f3 is possible. The most classical one, I think, is bishop b2. And now, as black is the one who has, well, gave up a pawn, he tries to grab the initiative by attacking white's pieces. He starts with a6. White has to retreat in the knight. Black keeps attacking the knight. We keep moving the knight around. Black keeps attacking the knight. And in this case, white defends the knight by playing d4. Black takes en passant. We take back with the knight. Be careful, if we take with any other piece, the knight would be hanging. So here, after black castles, black has better development. Black has already castled, but white is up a pawn. So if white manages to consolidate the position, he will probably be a bit better. If black manages to create a lot of attacking chances, he might checkmate white. So yeah, the game continues. Select short castle, for example, queen 7. Again, developing and gaining some tempi against white pieces, because the ace2 pawn is under attack now. So white plays a3. Black keeps pushing. By playing c5, he wants to go c4. He wants to use this diagonal for the bishop. White plays knight a3, trying to develop c4, and one possible line, although okay, this is pretty complicated, is knight b5. Instead of moving the knight, we move the other knight, attacking both queen and bishop. Black moves the bishop.
We check the king.
White's only move is king h1. Black needs to move the queen. At the same time, he wants to keep the bishop defended. Knight e1, because the knight was still under attack. Now knight is hanging, but as black took with the queen, now we can take with the king the bishop. Okay, this is just thing very crazy. This is a possible line. Even I think there were a couple of players that found all these good moves. At some point, a4, okay, like attacks the queen, queen moves, king takes s3, rook d8. White's queen seemed to be almost trapped, so white has to go bishop d2, but then knight d4. Thanks to the ping, black's attacking the bishop. We go knight d3, trying to develop, and okay, after all this craziness, I mean, if 2 players find all these moves, I don't know what to think really, but after all of this, white is still up a pawn, but his king on e3, I not see him doing too well. So yeah, this position is still crazy. Both players have played tremendously well, I think. Absolutely. It was very difficult to find all these moves. I tried to explain it without like go into much detail, because then I would have to explain hours only for this line. But yeah, after all, white remains up a pawn, black remains having some compensation. And as you have seen, the play that arises after this 95 move is very tactical. Is not positional as we were seeing in other lines where white was playing calmer moves. And if black is not playing precisely, you can have great results if you memorize a few lines and you understand the tactical patterns when you go 95. But at the same time, if black knows his stuff, it might backfire. So be careful with both colors and try to not fall for any traps.
Absolutely. There is a game in the chess database that went all the way to here. So chess players managed to find this line, and it's very interesting how accurate. Probably this is not a blitz or bullet kind of chess. Probably it's like
Yeah.
it looks like a classical game of some sort. For players who would like to check it up, it would be a nice homework for you to go load up your chess engine, evaluate the position. It's always this is the best way actually to learn rather than just opening a video and watching it behind a master. Try to actually load this game on your own terminal, check it up, see the moves, check the computer engine's moves, check the evaluation, and try to predict the next move. Like here, both players played almost the best lines to keep the attack and to keep the defenses without any blundering. It may seem that the white king here is misplaced and it might be in danger, but I believe here the position is equal, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, exactly. The position is just equal because it's not so easy for black to regroup his pieces and launch an attack on the king at the other edge of the board, while white is connecting the rook fairly well here, and this spin is not valid. This bishop is protected by the pawn already, and the queen is free to move. So there is not much of pins going on. Now, of course, black can jump back, but overall the game goes on, and both sides have chances at this. Maybe I would still prefer white here because it looks to me is the pawn structure is much better, and we are up also a pawn here, which plays a role in the end game, provided that white can actually hold till the end game without blundering anything. But ultimately, it's a very interesting position to feature. We have featured today 12 different variations in the Italian game, and these are the main ones. There's lots more than these. There's lots of sidelines, lots of things that you can go after. But ultimately, as what Master Luis showed us in this lesson today, these are 12 main lines. If you study them very well, you should be able to enjoy a very good Italian game. There, you don't need much. You can learn the rest as you go along. You don't have to cover the whole Italian game, which has been analyzed and studied for over 300 years in just 1 hour. You can just go slowly about it, master these 12 lines, understand the logic behind them, and then from there, see as you go along how you can branch out your understanding, what other sidelines you would like to investigate and see. But as Master Luis showed us, these 12 lines should be sufficient for you to get started very comfortably playing the Italian game. And that would lead us to the most popular question that we get all the time. And for everyone who managed to stay with us throughout this video, they will be rewarded with the answer to this question. I would like to ask you, Master Luis, is this opening suitable for beginners?
Definitely, yes. And I want to point out, if you missed the video on the Rui Lopez, you might see there that I don't say yes, that's because we have done this video.
Right.
I do think it's probably the best opening for beginners because, first of all, beginners have to train his tactical skills, and you have a lot of gambits, a lot of attacking lines, a lot of ways to play with active pieces. Also, starting to know a bit of theory and memorizing and analyzing your games is very important when you are a beginner and when you are trying to improve. And in these lines, you need to do it because otherwise black will know better, or like black will, well, your opponent, because you can play this with both colors, but as it's very move by move, you have to like know your stuff. There are a lot of patterns that can be found in other openings. Also because it's an opening that you will face all the time with both colors. If you play e4 with white, the most common move will be e5. So you will be playing the Italian a lot of times. And when you are black, you will face e4 many times. So if you master the Italian, it's already a big progress or a big achievement. So definitely yes. Also because you can play the Italian with white, and you can go one day with the Evans Gambit, another day with the Giuoco Piano. So it depends on your mood. You can choose between having a calmer option or having a crazier one. So definitely yes. I think it's probably the best opening for beginners. I would advise to study it. I would advise to play it. If later you don't like it, obviously there are other openings that you can play, but for me it's the top one opening when you are starting. Even, I mean, I still play it and I am an international master. I have played with both colors, more often with white, because usually with black I play Sicilian and also other lines, but with white is my main opening, even nowadays. And it depends on my mood, as I said earlier. I played positional, I played aggressive, I can between different lines, but definitely yes, it's a very good option for both colors, but especially for white. Really, go for it. Try to study it and try to take the most out of it.
Absolutely. I believe the Italian game, unlike the Spanish opening, it gives you lots of lessons for club players, lots of tactical opportunities. If you like to get a tactical master class in openings, this is your best shot here. It's slightly better than the Spanish opening in terms of giving you the best tactical opportunities to analyze and understand. Although the Spanish opening that we covered is very nice and gives you lots of positional moves and very nice games, of course, but the Italian game, when it comes to tactics, and especially for club players, it serves as a very good start for them, as what Master Luis pointed out, which is why it's taught in clubs all the time. If it's not very effective as a teaching instrument, then we wouldn't see it being taught all over the world in any chess club we go to. This should be featured sometime, somewhere, and multiple times over the year if you are attending a club at a regular interval. So it's definitely a great opening to check. All these files that you see will be included in our academy. So if you ever want to join us, you can access all these studies, plus the upcoming studies that Master Luis is preparing for us. So stay tuned for our updates, and we hope to see you soon next week. Master Luis, it's been a great pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for guiding us today throughout the Italian game.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here. Hope to see you next week and hope you enjoy it.
For sure. All the best, Master Luis. All the best.
All the
See you
best.
soon.